Ways not to respond to change. As soils are products of and are imprinted by the climate conditions of the geological past, it may take hundreds, if not thousands, of years to form a few centimeters of topsoil. A sudden shift in the climate at a location can create mismatches between weather regimes and soils. To survive, a farmer could shift to a different crop that fits the new meteorological reality, but that might have devastating economic financial impacts and there may be practical challenges. Relocating the production of a specific agricultural crop to chase the moving climate may be a possibility if the land is accessible and free for the taking. This is how wildlife species occasionally respond to such changes. But it is likely more difficult than one might imagine, particularly if the new location, with the right temperature and moisture regime, has inadequate soils, produced under dramatically different past climates, or soils that necessitate significant quantities of artificial inputs to grow the crop. Following the climate may be very difficult and unrealistic. Land ownership is an impediment to relocation of farming practices. Legal boundaries, political boundaries, social and cultural boundaries, and the logistical, infrastructural, and economic consequences and challenges in starting over, may prove to be insurmountable barriers. The choice may be to simply remain in place and change crops, i.e., adjust, or relocate and find ways to carry on, i.e., adapt. It is important to stress that even wild plants and animals cannot simply move and adapt with the changes. There is often too much in their way, too. Clearly, climate change would cause major interruptions in food production, globally. Completely giving into the change and finding new ways to survive, because one rationally disposes of the luxuries and desires one had and accepts that it is most important to meet basic needs to survive, may be the most realistic use of human ingenuity to cope with new and evolving conditions if we choose not to mitigate the causes. This is an example of developing resilience. It used to be only the impoverished, landless, powerless, and desperate people who have lived this way for decades and centuries, but it may become reality for even those who were not impoverished, owned land, had power, and were not living in desperation. Resilience at its most profound is the condition of learning to accept change by becoming immune to the threats, perhaps by simplifying life, coming to understand the difference between need and want, to have the fewest vulnerabilities possible, to survive by bending with the wind and flowing with the current, whichever directions they take you, to keep your head above the water until you find solid ground again. Change may affect everybody and may impact every aspect of every life. The change to which one may be responding, like global warming-induced conditions, for instance, will also be impacting communities, societies, governments, other states of the world. There may be diminishing availability of assistance from friends, countrymen, strangers. The governments upon whom many depend for help may lack the resources to provide it. The structures of societies may begin to crumble. It may be every family, man, woman, and child for themselves as starvation, famine, poverty, dislocation, insecurity, and devolution ensue. An extreme future is no longer just science fiction. We are catching a glimpse of such a future in 2020 as the novel coronavirus COVID-19 spreads around the world, disrupting normality. Perhaps it is a symptom of the changes that we have wrought. An alternative may be to prevent what can be prevented before the changes become inevitable. We may preempt them so that they might not occur or will be muted. Instead of waiting for the forewarned changes, we could strive to understand their causes, and if possible, attenuate them. The prospects of forced adjustment, adaptation, and resilience may be so bleak and worrisome that the alternative, changing behaviors now to promote less future change, may be the preferred discomfort.